Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Our first story is titled,
My in-laws tried to sabotage our wedding. I took extreme measures. I met my fiance, Colin, 3 years ago at a mutual friend's barbecue. We hit it off immediately, bonding over our shared love of true crime podcasts and terrible reality TV shows. Within 6 months, we were living together, and after 2 years, he proposed during a weekend getaway at a quaint little bed and breakfast. I was over the moon, eagerly looking forward to planning our perfect day. That's when I met Colin's parents, Dan and Isla. For the first time, looking back, I should have seen the red flags from that very first meeting. "Oh, sweetie," Isla said, eyeing me up and down with a critical gaze. "I hope you're not planning on wearing white for the wedding. It's not really your color, is it?" I laughed nervously, unsure if she was joking. She wasn't. Dan chimed in. "And make sure you don't go overboard with the guest list. We can't have too many of your people there. It needs to be a classy affair." I glanced at Colin, hoping he'd say something, but he just shifted uncomfortably in his seat. Later, he explained that his parents could be a bit much sometimes, but assured me they meant well. I wanted to believe him for his sake. As we dove into wedding planning, it quickly became apparent that Dan and Isla had very specific ideas about how our day should go. And by our day, I mean their day. "We've already put a deposit down on the country club," Isla announced one afternoon, about a month into our engagement. "It's where all the family weddings have been held." I blinked in surprise. "But we hadn't even started looking at venues yet." Isla waved her hand dismissively. "Oh, don't worry about it, dear. We know what's best. The country club is perfect." I turned to Colin, hoping for backup. He cleared his throat. "Mom, we appreciate the thought, but we were thinking of something a bit more us. Maybe that rustic barn venue we saw online?" Isla's face clouded over. "A barn? You can't be serious. What will people think?" "They'll think it's beautiful and fits our style," I said, trying to keep my voice level. "We want something casual and fun, not stuffy and formal." Dan leaned forward, his tone patronizing. "Now, listen here. We're contributing a significant amount to this wedding, and we expect to have some say in how it's done. The country club is non-negotiable." I felt my blood beginning to boil, but Colin squeezed my hand under the table, silently pleading with me to let it go. For his sake, I bit my tongue. That was just the beginning. Over the next few weeks, Isla and Dan steamrolled over every decision we tried to make. They vetoed our choice of photographer, too artsy, our menu selections, no one wants vegan options, and even tried to dictate the color scheme. "Navy and blush?" Isla scoffed when I showed her our inspiration board. "No, no, we'll be doing burgundy and gold. It's much more sophisticated." I tried to stand my ground. "But Isla, Colin and I have already decided on navy and blush. It's what we want." She patted my hand condescendingly. "Oh, honey, you'll thank me later. Trust me, I know best." The interference didn't stop there. Isla took it upon herself to schedule cake tastings without consulting us, insisting on a traditional multi-tiered fruitcake. Despite our preference for a modern dessert bar, she vetoed our chosen DJ, claiming he wasn't refined enough, and instead booked a string quartet we had never even met. Dan, not to be outdone, decided to take charge of the transportation arrangements. Without asking, he reserved a fleet of expensive vintage cars to ferry the wedding party around, completely ignoring our plans for a fun party bus for our friends. When we tried to object, he brushed us off, saying, "This is how it's done in our circles. You'll see, it's much more elegant." The situation grew increasingly frustrating as Isla and Dan's meddling extended to every aspect of the wedding. They insisted on reviewing and approving our guest list, adding names of their country club friends and business associates we had never met while questioning the inclusion of some of our closest friends. One afternoon, I walked in on Isla poring over seating charts, meticulously rearranging the placements we had spent hours perfecting. When I confronted her, she simply said, "Dear, you clearly don't understand the intricacies of proper seating etiquette. I'm just making sure no one is offended." Even our honeymoon wasn't safe from their interference. Dan took it upon himself to book us a 2-week cruise in the Mediterranean, complete with daily excursions and formal dinners. The fact that Colin and I had been saving for a backpacking trip through Southeast Asia seemed irrelevant to him. "You can't possibly be serious about traipsing through some third world countries for your honeymoon," he scoffed when we tried to explain our plans. "This cruise is much more suitable. You'll be rubbing elbows with the right kind of people." The invasions of our privacy became more frequent and bold. Isla started showing up unannounced at our apartment, armed with bridal magazines and unsolicited advice. She critiqued everything from my choice of wedding dress. Apparently, the one I loved was too revealing and not flattering to my figure, to the way I planned to wear my hair. One day, she arrived with a garment bag containing a wedding dress she had picked out herself. "I saw this and knew it would be perfect," she gushed, pulling out a monstrosity of lace and beads that looked like it belonged in the 1980s. When I politely declined, her face fell, and she spent the next hour guilt-tripping me about how much time and money she had spent finding the perfect dress. Dan, meanwhile, took charge of the alcohol selection for the reception. Despite our requests for a variety of small craft beers and cocktails, he insisted on stocking only top-shelf liquors and expensive champagnes. "We can't have people thinking we can't afford the best," he said dismissively when we tried to argue. The situation reached a boiling point when Isla decided to surprise us by ordering wedding invitations without our input. The invitations arrived heavy cardstock embossed with gold leaf, featuring a design that could only be described as ostentatious. Not only was the design not to our taste, but she had also taken the liberty of changing the wording to emphasize her and Dan's role as hosts. To make matters worse, I discovered that Isla had been meddling with our actual guest list. I found her at our dining room table, a stack of our invitations in front of her, methodically crossing off names. "What are you doing?" I asked, my voice tight with barely contained anger. She looked up, not a hint of shame on her face. "Oh, I'm just making some necessary adjustments. You invited far too many people. And really, do we need to invite your cousin with the blue hair? It will clash terribly with the burgundy decor." I snatched the invitations away from her. "These are our invitations, Isla. You have no right to change them." She stood up, drawing herself to her full height. "I have every right. This is my son's wedding, and I won't have it ruined by your poor taste and lack of social graces." I was shaking with rage. "Get out," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Get out of my house right now." Isla huffed indignantly. "Colin," she called out, "Colin, come here and talk some sense into your fiancé." Colin came running at the commotion. "What's going on?" I turned to him, tears of frustration in my eyes. "Your mother was changing our guest list without our permission, Colin. I can't do this anymore. They're taking over everything. This isn't our wedding anymore. Colin looked torn, his eyes darting between his mother and me. Mom, is this true? Isla had the audacity to look offended. I was merely making some necessary adjustments. Someone has to ensure this wedding is up to our family standards. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I turned to Colin, praying he would finally stand up to his parents. Colin, please, this has to stop. It's our wedding, not theirs. Colin ran a hand through his hair, clearly stressed. Can we all just calm down? I'm sure we can work this out. But I was done compromising. No, Colin, we can't. Your parents have steamrolled over every single decision we've made. They're trying to turn our day into their day. I won't stand for it anymore. Isla interjected. Now listen here, young lady. We're paying for a significant portion of this wedding, and that gives us the right to have a say on how it's done. That was it. The last thread of my patience snapped. You know what? Keep your money. The wedding is off. The room fell silent. Colin looked at me, shock written all over his face. What? Babe, you can't mean that. I took a deep breath, suddenly feeling calmer than I had in weeks. I do mean it. At least this version of the wedding is off. Colin, I love you and I want to marry you, but I can't do it like this. We need to talk alone. Isla started to protest, but I held up a hand. Please leave. Now. Both of you. To my surprise, Dan, who had been silent throughout this confrontation, took Isla's arm. Come on, dear. I think we've overstayed our welcome. As soon as they were gone, I collapsed onto the couch, the fight leaving me all at once. Colin sat next to me, taking my hand in his. I'm so sorry, he said softly. I knew they were being difficult, but I didn't realize how bad it had gotten. I should have stood up to them sooner. I squeezed his hand. Yes, you should have, but that's not important right now. What's important is what we do next. Colin nodded. You're right. So, what do we do? I took a deep breath. I think we should elope. His eyebrows shot up. Elope? Are you serious? Completely, I said. Colin, I love you and I want to be your wife, but I can't go through months more of this. The thought of continuing to fight over your parents on every little detail makes me want to scream. Let's just do it, just us, the way it should be. Colin was quiet for a long moment, and I feared I'd gone too far. But then he smiled, a slow, genuine smile that reached his eyes. You know what? Let's do it. You're right. This is about us, not them. Let's get married. Just the two of us. Relief washed over me, and I threw my arms around him. Really? You're okay with this? He hugged me tight. More than okay. I'm sorry it took me so long to see how miserable this was making you. No more. From now on, it's you and me against the world, including my parents, if necessary. We spent the next week secretly planning our elopement. We found a beautiful little chapel in a nearby town that specialized in last-minute ceremonies. We picked out simple but elegant outfits, chose rings we both loved, and even splurged on a talented photographer to capture the day. The morning of our elopement, we left a note for Colin's parents explaining our decision. We knew they wouldn't be happy, but at that point we were beyond caring. This was our day, and we were going to do it our way. The ceremony was everything I dreamed of and more. Standing there, just the two of us and our photographer, exchanging vows we'd written ourselves, I knew we'd made the right decision. There were no arguments about flower arrangements, no disapproving looks from Isla, no stress about seating charts or menu choices. It was just us, declaring our love and commitment to each other. After the ceremony, we had a romantic dinner at a local restaurant, then spent the night in a charming bed and breakfast. It was perfect, intimate, and entirely ours. Of course, the blissful bubble had to burst eventually. We returned home the next day to find Colin's parents waiting for us, their faces like thunderclouds. "How could you do this to us?" Isla wailed as soon as we walked in the door. "Do you have any idea how embarrassing this is? What am I supposed to tell our friends?" Dan, red-faced with anger, added, "This is completely unacceptable. We put down deposits. We made plans. You've humiliated us." I felt Colin stiffen beside me, but before he could speak, I stepped forward. "No," I said firmly. "What's unacceptable is how you've behaved throughout this entire process. This was our wedding, not yours. You left us no choice." Isla turned to Colin, her eyes brimming with tears. "Colin, darling, surely you didn't want this. She must have pressured you into it." I held my breath, waiting for Colin's response. This was the moment of truth, the time for him to truly stand up to his parents. Colin put his arm around me, pulling me close. "No, Mom, this was our decision. Together, we wanted our day to be about us, not about meeting your expectations or impressing your friends. I'm sorry if that disappoints you, but I'm not sorry we did it." Isla's tears dried up instantly, replaced by a look of cold fury. "I see. Well, if that's how you feel, I suppose there's nothing left to say. Don't expect any support from us going forward." "That's fine," Colin said, his voice steady. "We don't need your support. What we need is for you to respect our decisions and our relationship. If you can't do that, then I think it's best if we don't see each other for a while." Dan sputtered. "You can't be serious. You'd choose her over your own family?" Colin nodded. "If that's how you want to see it, yes. She is my family now, my wife. And if you can't accept that, then yes, I choose her." I've never been prouder of him than I was in that moment. Isla and Dan left in a huff, slamming the door behind them. As soon as they were gone, Colin let out a long breath and pulled me into a tight hug. "I'm so sorry," he murmured into my hair. "I should have done that a long time ago." I hugged him back just as tightly. "It's okay. You did it now, and that's what matters." The next few months were challenging. Colin's parents alternated between icy silence and attempting to guilt-trip him into apologizing. They sent flying monkeys in the form of extended family members, trying to make us feel bad about our decision. But we stood firm. We sent out announcements to our friends and family, explaining that we had eloped and inviting them to a casual reception to celebrate with us. The response was overwhelmingly positive, with most people understanding our decision once they heard the full story. The reception was everything our original wedding was meant to be: casual, fun, and entirely us. We held it in the backyard of our favorite brewery, with food trucks, lawn games, and plenty of good beer. Our friends and supportive family members surrounded us with love and joy. It was perfect. Isla and Dan didn't attend, of course. They sent a terse note declining the invitation, along with a check, a refund for their portion of the wedding expenses we'd never wanted in the first place. We donated the money to a local charity that supported victims of domestic violence, figuring it was a fitting use for it. It's been a year since our elopement, and I can honestly say it was the best decision we could have made. Colin and I are stronger than ever, having weathered the storm together. We've maintained firm boundaries with his parents, only seeing them on rare occasions and always on our terms. Recently, we found out we're expecting our first child. We debated for a long time about how to tell Colin's parents, knowing it would likely open up old wounds. In the end, we decided to send them a simple announcement card, the same as we sent to everyone else. No special treatment, no olive branch, just a statement of fact. To our surprise, it was Dan who called first. His voice was gruff but sincere as he congratulated us. "I've done a lot of thinking this past year," he said. "I realize now that I handled things badly. I'd like a chance to do better, to be a grandfather to this child, if you'll let me." It wasn't an outright apology, but it was a start. We agreed to meet for dinner, setting clear expectations about behavior and boundaries. Isla was notably absent from this olive branch, but Dan explained that she was coming around slowly. As I sit here writing this with my hand resting on my growing belly, I can't help but reflect on how differently things could have turned out. If we hadn't taken that drastic step, if we had given in to the pressure and had the wedding Colin's parents wanted, I'm not sure our marriage would have survived. The resentment, the feeling of starting our life together on someone else's terms, it would have poisoned everything. Instead, we started as we meant to go on, as partners, supporting each other and making decisions together. It wasn't easy and it came at a cost, but it was worth it. We're facing the future on our own terms, building the life and the family we want. To anyone out there facing similar pressure, whether from in-laws, parents, or anyone else trying to hijack your big day, I say this: stand your ground. Your wedding is about you and your partner, no one else. If eloping is what it takes to have the day you want, do it. Start your marriage the way you intend to live it, making decisions together, supporting each other, and not letting anyone else dictate your choices. In the end, our extreme measures weren't about revenge or spite. They were about reclaiming what was ours, about starting our life together on our own terms. And I wouldn't change a thing. As for the future, who knows? Maybe Isla will come around like Dan seems to be doing. Maybe she won't. Either way, Colin and I are prepared to face it together, just like we faced those tumultuous wedding plans, because that's what marriage is really about: standing together, supporting each other, and building the life you want, regardless of what anyone else thinks. Our love story didn't have the traditional happy ending of a big fancy wedding, but you know what? I think our ending, or rather our beginning, was even better because it was ours, completely and utterly ours. And in the end, that's all that really matters. Here are my thoughts about the story. Can we talk about Isla and Dan before we do anything else? I mean, seriously, these two are like the final bosses of meddling parents. I was sitting here, jaw on the floor, and they steamrolled over every single decision. The audacity, the nerve. I was getting secondhand stress just reading about it. When Isla had the balls to cross names off the guest list, I nearly threw my phone across the room. Who does that? But here's the thing that really got me. Colin, my dude, where were you at the beginning of all this? I was screaming at my screen. Grow a spine, bro. It's wild how some folks can be so blinded by family loyalty that they can't see the forest for the trees. I've seen it happen in real life, and it never ceases to amaze me how deep that programming can run. Now, let's talk about our bride. This woman is my new hero. The patience of a saint, I tell ya. I would have lost my shit way earlier, but when she finally snapped, oh boy, it was glorious. I was ready to start jumping on my chair when she told Isla to get out. The elopement? Chef's kiss, perfect solution. I love how they took back control of their lives and their marriage, and the way they described their intimate ceremony, it sounded magical. No stress, no drama, just pure love. That's what a wedding should be about, folks. Not shaming the celebration or the traditional wedding, mind you, but let's not forget what the event is all about: love. But let me tell you, the part that really got me, the moment I stood up and down, clapped in my empty room, was when Colin finally stood up to his parents. That moment when he said, "She is my family now, my wife, and if you can't accept that, then yes, I choose her." I felt that in my soul, people. That's growth. That's a man stepping into his role as a husband. Beautiful stuff. Now, I gotta admit, I was a bit skeptical about the ending. But the way Dan reached out after the pregnancy announcement, that felt real. And Isla still holding out? Yeah, that tracks. What really struck me about this story is how it's not just about a wedding, it's about setting boundaries, standing up for yourself, and choosing your partner above all else. It's about starting a marriage as you mean to go on, as a team, facing the world together.
And now, guys, we will move on to the second story of the video. Please like the video if you have enjoyed it so far. The story starts like this.
My wife secretly took out a loan in my name. Now I'm facing bankruptcy. Just a year ago, I was happily married with a good job, a nice house, and what I thought was a solid financial future. Now I'm facing bankruptcy, going through a messy divorce, and trying to rebuild my life from the ground up. All because the person I trusted most in the world betrayed me in a way I never saw coming. I guess I should start at the beginning. My name is Dean, and I've been married to my wife, Haley, for 8 years. We met in college and fell head over heels for each other. She was beautiful, smart, and ambitious. Everything I thought I wanted in a partner. After graduation, we both landed good jobs and started building our life together. Things were great for the first few years. We bought a house, took nice vacations, and generally lived comfortably. Haley always liked the finer things in life, but I didn't mind indulging her. I thought we were on the same page financially. We both had good incomes, and as long as we weren't going into debt, I was fine with enjoying our money. Looking back, there were some red flags I chose to ignore. Haley was always pushing to upgrade things. A bigger house, a fancier car, more expensive vacations. When I'd suggest we save more for the future, she'd get upset and accuse me of being a killjoy. "We work hard, we deserve to enjoy life," she'd say. I'd usually give in to keep the peace. I also noticed Haley seemed to have a lot of new clothes and jewelry, more than I remembered her buying. When I asked about it, she'd say things like, "Oh, this old thing, I've had it forever." Or, "It was on sale, don't worry about it." I chose to believe her even though something felt off. The real trouble started about 6 months ago. I was going through our mail when I noticed a letter from a bank I didn't recognize. It was addressed to me, so I opened it. What I saw inside made my blood run cold. It was a past due notice for a loan of $100,000 in my name. The letter said I was 3 months behind on payments, and they were threatening to take legal action. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I had never taken out this loan. How was this possible? With shaking hands, I called the bank. After verifying my identity, they confirmed that yes, I had a $100,000 personal loan with them that was seriously delinquent. The loan had been taken out 8 months ago. When I told them I had no knowledge of this loan, they said all the paperwork was in order. Loan application, copies of my driver's license and social security card, everything. I felt sick. There was only one explanation. Haley had somehow taken out this massive loan in my name without my knowledge. I couldn't believe it. How could she do this to me? I confronted her as soon as she got home from work. "Haley, what the hell is this?" I demanded, shoving the letter in her face. "Did you take out a loan in my name without telling me?" For a moment, she looked like a deer in headlights. Then her face hardened. "Okay, fine. Yes, I did," she said defiantly. "But I had to. We needed the money." "Needed it for what?" I shouted. "We both make good money. What could we possibly need $100,000 for that you couldn't tell me about? Haley launched into a convoluted explanation about investments and business opportunities. She claimed she'd used the money to invest in some can't-miss stock picks and cryptocurrencies that were going to make us rich. She just needed a little more time for the investments to pay off. Then she'd pay back the loans and surprise me with how much money she'd made us. I felt like I was in the Twilight Zone. Haley, that's insane, I said. You committed fraud and identity theft. You could go to jail for this. And now we're on the hook for $100,000 plus interest that we can't pay back. What were you thinking? Don't be so dramatic, she scoffed. It's not a big deal. Lots of people take out loans. Once my investments pay off, we'll be set for life. You should be thanking me. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. It was like she was living in an alternate reality where what she'd done was perfectly normal and acceptable. I realized I didn't even know who I was married to anymore. Where's the money now? I asked, dreading the answer. Haley hemmed and hawed, making excuses, but eventually I got the truth out of her. She'd lost almost all of it on her sure thing investments. What little was left, she'd spent on designer clothes, expensive jewelry, and fancy vacations with her friends that she told me were work trips. I was speechless. The woman I loved and trusted had stolen my identity, gambled away a fortune, and lied to my face about it for months. And she didn't even seem to think that she'd done anything wrong. I want you out of this house, I said quietly. Pack a bag and go stay with your sister. I can't even look at you right now. Haley's eyes went wide. For the first time, she seemed to realize the gravity of what she'd done. Dean, please, she begged. I'm sorry. We can fix this. Just give me a chance to make it right. But I'd heard enough. There's no fixing this, I said. You betrayed me in the worst way possible. I want a divorce. Haley left in tears. I spent the night alternating between rage and despair, trying to figure out how my life had imploded so suddenly. The next few weeks were a blur of police reports, lawyer consultations, and agonizing conversations with banks and credit agencies. I reported the identity theft and loan fraud, which meant I had to formally accuse my wife of a crime. It was the hardest thing I've ever done, but I knew I had to protect myself. Haley begged me to reconsider, swearing she'd find a way to pay back the money, but the trust was irreparably broken. I filed for divorce and focused on trying to clear my name and salvage my finances. It wasn't easy. Even though I reported the fraud, my credit was still trashed. I was on the hook for tens of thousands in fees and interests. Bill collectors were calling constantly. I had to hire an attorney to help me navigate the legal mess, which cost thousands I didn't have. I also discovered Haley had opened several credit cards in my name and maxed them out. She'd been living a secret double life, buying luxury goods and taking lavish trips while hiding it all from me. All told, she'd racked up over $200,000 in fraudulent debt in my name. My lawyer advised me to file for bankruptcy to try to discharge some of the debt. It was humiliating, but I didn't see any other choice. I was drowning in bills I couldn't pay for things I'd never even bought. The strain was unbearable. I could barely sleep or eat. I was constantly stressed and angry. My work started to suffer, and I worried I might lose my job on top of everything else. I felt like my whole life was falling apart. Friends and family were supportive, but I was embarrassed to tell them the whole story. How could I admit that my wife had stolen my identity and bankrupted me? I felt like a fool for not seeing what was happening right under my nose. Haley didn't make things any easier. When she realized I was serious about the divorce, she turned nasty. She tried to paint me as controlling and abusive. claiming she'd only taken out the loans because I wouldn't let her have any freedom. She even tried to claim that I knew about the loans all along and was just trying to frame her. It was infuriating. The divorce dragged on for months as we fought over every detail. Haley tried to claim she was entitled to half our assets, conveniently ignoring the massive debt she'd saddled us with. My lawyer had to fight tooth and nail to protect what little I had left. Meanwhile, I was trying to keep my head above water financially. I had to sell our house and move into a tiny apartment. I sold my car and started taking the bus. I cut every expense I could, but it still wasn't enough. The debt felt like a millstone around my neck, dragging me under. Just when I thought things couldn't get any worse, I was laid off from my job. The stress and distraction of the divorce had impacted my work performance, and my company was downsizing anyway. Suddenly, I had no income on top of all my other problems. I hit rock bottom. I remember sitting in my bare apartment, surrounded by unpaid bills, wondering how my life had come to this. I'd always been responsible with money. I'd worked hard and played by the rules. Now I was broke, jobless, and my financial future was in ruins, all because I trusted the wrong person. But hitting bottom was also a turning point. I realized I couldn't keep wallowing in misery and self-pity. I had to take control and fight my way out of this mess. I threw myself into job hunting, sending out dozens of applications a day. I took a part-time retail job to bring in some money while I looked for something in my field. I started a side gig doing freelance work online. Every spare dollar went towards chipping away at my debts. I also got more aggressive in dealing with my legal and financial issues. I filed formal complaints against Haley with the police and FBI for identity theft and fraud. I disputed every fraudulent charge and account with the credit bureaus. I negotiated with creditors to reduce balances and set up payment plans. Slowly but surely, things started to turn around. After 2 months of searching, I landed a new job in my field. It didn't pay as much as my old job, but it was a stable income. I kept my part-time job and side gig to bring in extra money. The criminal complaints against Haley finally gained traction. She was arrested and charged with multiple felonies. Seeing her mugshot on the local news was surreal. Part of me felt vindicated, but mostly I just felt sad that it had come to this. Haley ended up taking a plea deal to avoid a trial. She was sentenced to 3 years in prison and ordered to pay restitution. I knew I'd never see a dime of that money, but at least there was some justice. The divorce was finally settled, with Haley getting nothing. The judge was not sympathetic to her claims given her criminal actions. I was able to keep my retirement accounts and what little was left of our assets after selling everything to pay debts. As for Haley, her life completely unraveled. After the divorce and her criminal conviction, her carefully crafted image of success and luxury came crashing down around her. First, she lost her job. When news of her arrest hit the local media, her employer quickly distanced themselves from her. She was fired for conduct unbecoming and violating the company's ethics policy. With a felony conviction, she found it nearly impossible to find new employment in her field. Her family, who she'd always bragged about being so close, were horrified by what she'd done. They refused to support her financially or let her stay with them. Her sister, who she'd been living with during the divorce, kicked her out when she learned the full extent of Haley's crimes. Haley's fashionable friends, who she'd been taking on lavish trips with stolen money, abandoned her when the gravy train dried up. They wanted nothing to do with her now that she was broke and facing jail time. With no job and no support system, Haley quickly burned through what little money she had left. She was forced to declare bankruptcy herself, ironically facing the same financial ruin she'd inflicted on me. She ended up living in a tiny studio apartment in a bad part of town, working minimum wage jobs to scrape by. It was a far cry from the luxury lifestyle she'd become accustomed to. I heard through mutual friends that she was miserable, constantly complaining about how unfair life was and how everyone had abandoned her. Haley tried to start a blog about her journey of personal growth, painting herself as a victim who'd made some mistakes but was turning her life around. But readers quickly saw through her lack of remorse and self-serving narrative. The blog fizzled out after a few months of disinterested responses. When it came time for Haley to report to prison, she made a last-ditch attempt to avoid it. She tried to flee quietly out of town, apparently thinking she could start a new life there. But she was caught and charged with additional crimes for attempting to flee justice. This added another year to her sentence. I heard occasional updates about Haley's life in prison from mutual acquaintances. Apparently, she struggled to adjust to life behind bars. She was used to being pampered and getting her way, but that didn't fly in prison. She got into several fights with other inmates and spent time in solitary confinement for bad behavior. Haley tried to con her way into a cashier position in the prison library or education center, but the staff saw through her manipulations. She ended up assigned to kitchen duty, which she considered beneath her. There were no designer clothes or fancy restaurants in prison, just shapeless uniforms and barely edible cafeteria food. Meanwhile, I was slowly rebuilding my life. It's been a year since this all started, and things are finally looking up. My credit is still a mess, but I've managed to pay off some of the smaller debts. I'm still in my small apartment, driving a beat-up used car, but I have a good job again, and I'm carefully saving money. The bankruptcy was finalized a few months ago, discharging the worst of the fraudulent debts. I still have a long way to go to fully recover financially, but for the first time in a long time, I feel hopeful about my future. Going through all this has taught me some hard lessons. I'm much more careful now about protecting my personal information and monitoring my credit. I've had to learn to trust again, but I'm also much more alert to red flags in relationships. I'm dating again, taking things very slow. My girlfriend knows my story and has been incredibly understanding and supportive. She's nothing like Haley. She's responsible with money, and we have open, honest conversations about finances. It's a refreshing change. Looking back, I can see the warning signs I missed with Haley. Her materialism, her secretiveness about money, her willingness to lie to get what she wanted. I ignored my gut feelings because I wanted to believe the best of her. I won't make that mistake again. I also learned the hard way how important it is to be involved in your finances. Even if you trust your partner, I should have been checking our accounts regularly and reviewing our credit reports. I should have questioned the unexplained new possessions and lavish spending. Burying my head in the sand allowed the problem to spiral out of control. Some days I still get angry thinking about everything Haley put me through. The stress, the humiliation, the financial ruin. It's a lot to deal with, but I try not to dwell on it. I can't change the past. I can only move forward. I'm sharing my story as a cautionary tale. Financial infidelity is a real thing, and it can destroy lives. If you notice red flags with your partner spending or secrecy around money, don't ignore them. Have open, honest conversations about finances. Check your credit reports regularly and trust your instincts if something feels off. I never thought I'd be a victim of identity theft and fraud, let alone at the hands of my own wife. I never imagined I'd have to declare bankruptcy before age 40, but I've learned that you can survive even the worst betrayals and setbacks. It hasn't been easy, but I'm rebuilding my life and finances step by step. These days, I'm focused on the future. My goal is to be debt-free in 3 years. I'm working towards a promotion at my job. I'm slowly rebuilding my savings and credit. It's not an easy road, but I'm determined to come out stronger on the other side. As for Haley, her future looks bleak. When she's released from prison, she'll be a convicted felon with a ruined credit history and no job prospects. She'll have to pay restitution for years, assuming she can even find employment. The life of luxury she once knew is gone forever. I've heard she's tried to reach out to old friends and acquaintances, looking for support when she gets out. But most people want nothing to do with her. Her reputation is in tatters, and no one trusts her anymore. She's burned too many bridges. Sometimes I wonder if Haley has truly learned anything from this experience. Based on what I've heard, she still seems to see herself as the victim, blaming everyone but herself for her downfall. I hope for her sake that she eventually takes responsibility for her actions and makes real changes in her life. But I'm not holding my breath. I'll never fully trust the way I once did. The scars of betrayal run deep, but I refuse to let Haley's actions define the rest of my life. I'm moving forward with hope, working to create the stable, honest life I've always wanted. And this time, I'm making sure I'm in control of my own financial destiny. If you're facing a similar situation, know that you're not alone. It's a long, hard road to recovery, but you can make it. Seek legal and financial help. Surround yourself with supportive people. Take it one day at a time, and never give up hope that things will get better. My life today looks very different than I imagined it would a year ago, but in some ways it's better. It's more self-reliant, more financially savvy, and more appreciative of honesty and trust in relationships. I've learned what I'm capable of surviving, and it's made me stronger. So, that's my story. From happily married homeowner to divorced and bankrupt in the span of a year, all because of my wife's secret betrayal. It's not a journey I'd wish on anyone, but I'm proof that you can survive financial infidelity and fraud, even when it's perpetrated by the person you trust most. There's light at the end of the tunnel if you keep pushing forward. As for Haley, her story serves as a cautionary tale about the consequences of greed and deception. She thought she could lie and steal her way to a life of luxury, but in the end she lost everything: her marriage, her freedom, her reputation, and her future. It's a high price to pay for a few years of living beyond her means. I hope others can learn from our story. Trust is precious and easily broken. Financial honesty is crucial in any relationship, and no amount of material wealth is worth sacrificing your integrity and freedom. In the end, the truth always comes out, and the consequences can be devastating. Here are my thoughts about the story. Haley, ma'am? Like, what in the actual heck was going through her mind? I mean, I get wanting nice things, we all do, but taking out a secret $100,000 loan in your husband's name? That's not just crossing a line, that's pole vaulting over it and sprinting to the next county. And then to have the audacity to act like it's no big deal. Girl, you're lucky Dean didn't yeet you into the sun right then and there. But for real, this story hit me hard. It's not just the money, though. That's bad enough. It's the complete and utter betrayal of trust. Imagine thinking you're living your best life with your ride or die, only to find out they've been lying to your face and ruining your future behind your back. That's the kind of thing that messes with your head, you know? How do you ever trust anyone again after that? And let's be real, Dean's partly to blame here too. I'm not saying he deserved what happened, absolutely not. But dude, you gotta pay attention to your finances. I know it's not sexy, but checking your credit report and bank statements is like flossing. It sucks, but you gotta do it or things go to hell real quick. The part that really got me was when Dean lost his job on top of everything else. Like, universe, could you chill for 5 minutes? Give the guy a break. But I gotta give Dean props for not just curling up in a ball and giving up. Taking that retail job, hustling with side gigs, That takes guts when you're at rock bottom. Now, let's talk about Haley's epic fall from grace. Because wow, karma hit her like a freight train, going from designer clothes and fancy vacations to a crappy studio apartment in prison. That's some real how the mighty have fallen stuff right there. And trying to flee out of town? Haley, girl, get help. But here's the thing that bugs me. It doesn't sound like Haley ever really got it. You know what I mean? Like, even after everything blew up in her face, she's still playing the victim, still trying to con people. Some folks just never learn, I guess. On the flip side, seeing Dean slowly rebuild his life was pretty inspiring. It's like watching someone climb out of a pit one handhold at a time. And the fact that he's able to date again and trust someone new, that's huge. I don't know if I could do it in his shoes.
Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you again tomorrow.